Well, the role of Extension in every county in the state is to bring the information from the university, the research information from the university, to what we call place-bound people. You know, where they can't go to the university to get their information, so we bring the research, the information to families and farmers and youth in the area.
And some people might be familiar with programs that are commonly used, like the Master Gardeners program.
Right.
And that comes under your umbrella as well.
Right, Master Gardener program, a very robust program that we have in Chelan and Douglas County with over 100 volunteers.
And in nutrition and food preparation and food safety, as I mentioned, are kind of a big part of your mission. Is that right?
Yes, that's probably a big part of one of the things that I do is trying to keep people safe with their food, what they prepare at home, but I also work with the health department to train restaurant managers to make sure that the food that they're serving is also safe to the public.
And a lot of this is funded by kind of a web of grants and programs and federal projects and so forth. So can you tell me broadly for WSU Extension here in our two counties, what's, say, the percentage of federal funding that makes up your budget?
Well, it kind of comes from 3 or 4 sources. We get about a third of our money from the federal government. We get about it's kind of like a third and a third and a third. A third from the county, and then a third from the state, from the legislature, and then it's supplemented with a variety of different grants that we get to support new programs or different things.
One of the bigger sources, I think, for nutrition in particular has been the SNAP-Ed program. And this goes along with the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. SNAP-Ed itself was established in 1992. What did SNAP-Ed do for your agency?
Well, we were the first county in Washington State, and actually the first state in the United States to get a grant to start the SNAP-Ed program. And so the SNAP-Ed, or the educational part of it, was to work with people who were SNAP or food stamp recipients to help them make better food choices to improve their nutrition. And that's basically how it started out, and that's how it's continued for like 33 years. 33
years. And so in that time, has SNAP-Ed enabled you to launch particular programs? Were you having outreach through SNAP-Ed that you couldn't have done before?
Yeah, we have some great programs. This last year, before it was cut, we were probably in 60 different classrooms, and we took a series of 7 classes to those instructional classrooms, and cooperated with the teachers, cooperated with the schools, and and I think the bottom line is we're teaching kids how to appreciate good food, but at the same time we talk to them about reading labels, getting more exercise, and just learning basic nutrition. And so that was a big part of our program. But also on top of that, we've probably cooperated with about 60 agencies in the 3-county area and to do a variety of different things. But we developed a community garden with Celebration Lutheran Church for limited income people to come and grow their food. We did it with a women's shelter, and we also did it with the Housing Authority in Wenatchee. And we built raised garden beds through grants and labor and people who helped us do that. And so not only did they grow food, but then we had classes to teach them how to use the food, successfully rather than waste it. And if they had excess, then we encouraged them to take it to the food bank.
So it's kind of interesting. We talk about food, but this sort of says something about how deeply food reaches into our lives, because it sounds like you were able to sort of have a holistic set of programs based around SNAP-Ed.
Right. It just wasn't teaching about nutrition, but it was putting it into practice. And another very successful program we just ran last year for the first time was with the transition program at Wenatchee High School. And these are students who are developmentally delayed, and they can stay in school till they're about 21 or 22. But then after that, they have to start looking at ways to get on their own and move out in the community. And so we had 20 students, and we had 10 classes with them. And so we taught them life skills of how to cook, how to shop, how to read labels, how to prepare food, and over those 10 weeks, and none of them yet live on their own, but that's the goal. They'll eventually move into a transitional living, either in an apartment or a group home, but we tried to bring in the forefront the things that they're going to have to know to do that.
Everybody that you've dealt with through this program, it sounds like you're trying to help them achieve some kind of food independence or nutritional independence along the course of their lives.
That's right, and then along with food safety, is another aspect of it. But we just find that a lot of people don't have a lot of skills in how to cook, and the comment is made sometimes, well, if they're getting SNAP dollars, they should be able to cook. Well, that doesn't always work that way. If somebody in your family didn't cook, you're not going to learn how to cook. And so that's why we have actually, we don't like to call them cooking classes, but it ends up learning about nutrition and how to prepare food. But we do that with Head Start and EPIC and different organizations. In fact, I'm just starting a new series this week at Manson School with Latino parents on how to shop and prepare food and using the new dietary guidelines.
The new dietary guidelines were put out just recently by the Department of Agriculture and the Department of Health. Does that sort of change the approach you have to take in food education? Do you have to sort of rejigger your lesson plans to that?
Well, we've changed them to match what they're promoting, but I think it still comes back to eating whole foods and wholesome foods and staying away from ultra-processed foods and just making recipes and cooking for your family with wholesome food.
So SNAP Ed program, separate from that, was defunded by the signing of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act in July of last year. So 33 years with this program, now that program's defunded. What's been the impact for WSU Extension here in the Valley?
Well, as we let our schools know that we weren't coming back, we were in 3 counties. That's a lot of schools, a lot of kids, and we weren't supplanting what they were supposed to teach. We were adding something new to their curriculum, that they didn't include already. And not only did we reach those kids, but we reached their parents, because every week they came to class, we sent a newsletter home to the parents in English and Spanish that said, here's what your child learned today, and here's some ideas to incorporate at home. So that's lost. As far as the nutrition education that we've done with the community gardens, we tried to make those so they'd be sustainable after we left, and they are. And but as far as the classes of what I do with this produce that I'm growing, won't be there. Maybe in a smaller vein, but not with having 3 employees and very good employees to teach these classes and have empathy for whatever they were doing. That's not there.
So to put some dollars on it, it was about $350,000 that you could depend on from SNAP Ed in the 2025-26 year, I think it was?
24-25.
24-25. But in 2026, that number has fallen to 0.
0, exactly. It's not there.
And that means the 3 folks that were employed in your office, they had to be let go.
Yes, they no longer have jobs, right.
Have you had clients, people who've used SNAP Ed in the past, or agencies that have relied on you for that? Have they reached out this year saying we need your service, and you've just had to say no?
Well, we've had people call and they haven't realized what happened. We tried to let all of our partners know, but still have people call and say, can you come to our agency and do programs, or that sort of thing. And like I said, I'm going to start a program in Manson, a three series program, and we'll see how it goes. I don't speak Spanish, but they're very good with having interpreters, and they've already recruited an audience, and so I think it will go well. But I can only go so far with that part of my program because I administered that program. I didn't teach a lot in that program, and so again, losing 3 full-time people makes a big impact.
What's the funding stream for the Manson outreach?
Manson Outreach will be, the funding there will be using my county budget dollars to pay for the food.
So you've had to try and keep certain things going and patching the budget as you can.
Right.
Well, the Wenatchee School District had a lot to say. They spoke with Renee Diaz with Northwest Public Broadcasting about that. They said that you had provided nutrition education in more than 60 classrooms through SNAP Ed, and they said the reduction in these funds is felt by our students. These lessons provided a bridge between the cafeteria and the classroom, helping students and families understand why healthy choices matter. So it sounds like it's left something of a void for that school district.
It has, and the other thing that we did is we worked with Community Action with the mobile food market, and so people can go to the food bank and get food, like in the Wenatchee area. But Community Action had a mobile market that they brought to the schools, and we had the avenue to get into the schools where they had trouble recruiting an audience, and so working together, and then we set up a table and we did taste testing for what they had that day with the mobile food market, and we encouraged them to bundle the food. So if we were teaching them how to make a particular hearty soup in the wintertime or something like that, then they would bundle those foods together and people could pick up those foods, taste it with us, and go home and make it.
Do you worry, Margaret, that with the loss of this federal funding for SNAP Ed, which again has been in place for more than 30 years. The achievements you've been able to reach in Chelan-Douglas County, do you worry that they'll be backsliding? Do you worry that the kind of nutrition and health that you've been able to put in place, that we'll see some decline in that?
I don't think there's any other agency that will be able to step in and do what we've done. We still keep our fingers crossed that there might be some new funding coming through, but it's not looking good. But yes, I think there will be a backslide because there isn't anything that really takes its place. You know, we were out there in the forefront with as many classrooms as we reached, the number of agencies that we collaborated with. You know, it took a lot of years to build these partnerships and relationships. And I think we could bring them back if we had funding, but you know, that's not looking very good at the moment.
Well, you've been involved in building up and sustaining WSU Extension here in the two counties for quite some time. Are you confident in its resilience? Do you think the programs can continue to march forward and make do with the budgets that they have?
We're working on it, and sometimes it's harder than usual to convince the funders of what's important and what we should be doing. But as people step forward, we're always encouraging them to talk to your decision makers, letting them know, you know, how has Extension helped you and how has it made a difference in your life? You've
been in this position since 1970. Have you seen this kind of up and down or dramatic reversal of funding in the past?
We've had some ups and downs, but probably not as much as we've seen in the last couple of years. Just there's more demand on funding, whether you look at it at the local, the state, or the federal level, all over, you know, and there's been some reduction. And part of it being is that we're not mandated by the RCW or the law to be here. We were mandated by legislation back in the late 1800s for a land-grant university and to take the information to the public, but not any money came behind it. So it was a people mandate and not an RCW mandate.
But you got a real legacy there.
Right, that's true.
Speaking of legacies, you recently, Margaret, received the WSU Length of Service Award for your service as the longest service extension specialist in the state. Congratulations there.
Thank you.
You've also been inducted into the Hall of Fame for the National Extension Association of Family and Consumer Sciences, which is one of the umbrella organizations for the work that you do. Congratulations again.
Thanks.
They're all lining up to tell you how great you are.
Yeah, and with several different organizations, we've also received some national awards for our SNAP-Ed program as well. So it's being recognized nationwide, what we do.
Well, I hope there's some way to bring back some energy and some funding into that program.
Thank you, so do I.
Yeah. Margaret Viebrock, Director of Extension, WSU Extension for Chelan and Douglas counties. Thank you a lot for being here today.
Thanks a lot for asking me.
You're watching the NCW Life Channel.